You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 40. Today, we're going to talk about the shortcut to success. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right, hello listeners, welcome to the show. I'm your host, James Wedmore.
And I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode where we are going to reveal the shortcut to success. We're going to talk about something very simple. We have a very simple premise for today's episode, but I think I really like when we have something very simple and then we just get to throw it out there, swim in the deep end of this topic and see what comes up. So we're going to get into that in a minute, but first it's time to check in. Phoebe, how's it going?
James, it's going so well. I had an amazing weekend.
I know. You were getting all excited, so I was like, we need to talk about this.
Let's talk about it.
Why have you had this amazing weekend? Please share with me.
Well, so at the end, I guess it must have been Thursday night or maybe Friday morning. I just decided, I kind of threw it out there and I was like, I want a sign. I want something that, I don't know, I just needed kind of a pick-me-up a little bit. And
so you're doing what we say in the podcast. You're practicing what we preach.
Exactly.
So take me through how you did that, because I think this is awesome. It's beautiful.
So actually was Friday morning, I remember, because I've kind of gotten off my meditations in the morning. I was slipping a little bit. And so I hopped back on the wagon and I was like, at the end of my meditation, I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I'm feeling in a little bit of a funk. And so I need some sort of pick me up. I need a sign. And that was kind of the catalyst to everything. So,
I'm an introvert, so I got to go deeper here. How did you do that? Did you write it down? Did you say it in the meditation? What does that look like when you asked for that sign?
So as I'm I'm finished with my meditation. So I know we talked about in another episode, I do my meditation and then kind of a visualization. And at the end, my eyes are still closed. And in my head, I just kind of had my eyes closed and was like, right, this is it. Like, I need a sign. I'm not feeling great. Something needs to happen. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm just going to throw it out there. And so that's really all I said.
And beautiful. And I apologize to interrupt. I just like sitting this before we, get to the end here. Was there a moment when you did that where you felt trust or a little bit of certainty or expectation? Or were you like, I don't know if I'm going to get anything back? Like, where were you at when you said, I'm just going to throw it out there? Boom.
So I think there was an expectation. It hasn't really let me down before. I was like, it doesn't have to be today, but I just want it in the next couple days. And
so there was a knowing that something was going to happen.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love too that you're honest and open enough to share that you fell off the wagon, because, we've said this before, that we never, ever, 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 when we talk about this stuff, want to be the people that we are enlightened and we will talk down to you and tell you how to live your life. It's like, no, these are a lot of things that we've learned over the years, and they are disciplines, they are practices. And the whole purpose of the podcast is to be here for you when you fall off the wagon, because we know what it's like. Phoebe and I fall off all the time. And the thing is, if you're not falling off the wagon, you're probably not up to anything big. You can't really fall off a wagon when all you do is sit at home, binge Netflix, and eat Cheetos. Like, that's a pretty easy, you can't fail at that, But when you're up to big things and things get in the way, you work really hard on something and then it didn't go out the way you wanted it to, or you get tired or exhausted. That's where the roller coaster of playing this game called entrepreneurship, creating your life by design, really shows up. So we get in funks. I get in all the freaking time. And I really appreciate you sharing that. So
yeah, of course.
Thank you. So you threw this out there. Just a little bit of expectation, very specific requests. What happened?
So on Friday afternoon, I had a personality assessment, and that conversation, I'm not sure that was necessarily, in that conversation that I was like, this is the sign, because that was something that I had already scheduled. So I'm kind of skeptical, and I was like, that's probably not it. Let's keep going. Even though that conversation was amazing and just really opened the door on even further than you and I had pushed it, as far as like kind of where my personality is and what it is and what it's not. So that was really interesting. And then yesterday, I decided to take the whole day off. And something that I have always struggled with is actually taking the day off and not feeling guilty. So I was like, right, I'm going to take the day off, not feel guilty at all, and go to a coffee shop. So went to a coffee shop here in San Francisco. And as I was sitting there, I'm reading this book, and it is kind of a personality book by the guy who I had my assessment with. And I'm reading through it, and all of a sudden this guy sits next to me and he pulls out tarot cards. And I look over and I'm like, you have got to be kidding. All right, well, here we go. And I struck up a conversation with him, and he was like, normally I don't do this, but would you like a reading right here in this coffee shop? And I'm like, okay, of course. So I'm sitting there, and as this is unfolding the whole time, I'm like, here, this is it. Like, this is this sign. We go into, he reads my cards, and everything is completely spot on about my past. And we were talking about relationships. That was something that was on my mind yesterday. And from that tarot reading, I was kind of laughing. I was like, God, this is just so funny. You have no idea. Like, I literally asked for a sign, and you came and sat next to me. And after that, I went home, and someone was like, have you seen the new Tony Robbins documentary? Sat at home. I don't like to watch movies during the day. I only like to watch them at night. It's a little weird. But at 4:30 in the afternoon, I decided to watch it. And James, have you seen it yet?
I did. And I think I saw it. When did you see it? Did you watch it last night?
Yeah. Well, I watched it last night at 4:30.
Okay. Yeah. So we watched it, I think, the night before. Chelsea and I did.
Yeah.
So keep going. Continue with this. Yes.
So watched it, and it just got me so energized. It was like this snowball effect from my personality assessment. And also I had gotten, on Friday, I got my feedback back from a speech that I had given earlier in the week. And she said it went really, really well, and everyone really liked it. So I was just kind of on a high from that. And then I had the tarot card reading, and then watched the Tony Robbins documentary. And I actually ended up watching it twice because I just got so pumped. And I started to like write all kinds of stuff down. I have these huge poster boards now on my walls, like written everywhere. All kinds of stuff that I either learned from the documentary or things that I just had kind of forgotten about and needed that reminder. And it was just, as you know, James, when we talked earlier, I was like, I am so pumped. I just feel amazing.
Oh, yeah. You get on the call with me. Well, for like the day leading up to it, you're like, oh my gosh, so much has happened. You don't even know. I can't wait to tell you. You get on the phone and you just have this like contagious, explosive energy, which I just love. It's like definitely not in a funk anymore.
Yeah.
And so I love you sharing this. And yes, Chelsea and I watched the Tony Robbins documentary as well. So first off, I do, sidebar, want to highly recommend it because, I feel like I had a very similar experience that you did, like at the same time, where we watched the Tony Robbins documentary, I think Friday night, totally got us pumped up. So it's great. Get it on Netflix. Watch it. It's amazing. Even if you've done the Tony Robbins seminars in the past, which I've gone to UPW twice, highly recommend. It's just such a great documentary. It's just so inspiring to watch. The next day, I took the whole day off because we've been working really hard in this launch that we have. We're in like this pre-launch phase, and they've been long days. And, I intentionally took the entire day off. We could talk a little bit about the things that I did. Going back to what you said about feeling guilty when you take a day off, is that I used to feel that way all the time. And I'm sure today you feel very productive. I bet you today you feel like you're on fire. And the thing that we have to realize, ladies and gentlemen, not just Phoebe, is that taking time off isn't taking time off. Taking time off is part of the work. I had the most productive, it's Sunday. We're doing a podcast on a Sunday too. I had the most productive day today because I took the day off yesterday to do the other work, the spiritual work, the mind-body work, right? We have to give a link to this in the show notes. We talked about this before the call, but I listened to a presentation from Awesomeness Fest with Vishen Lakhiani. Did I say his name right? Is it Lakhiani or Lakhiani? Lakhiani. And it's about how to be uneffable with, and, got to censor it a little bit. There was a whole exercise in there in forgiveness. And I think we need to turn that into an episode because I sat there on the beach, beautiful beach, by myself in the sand, like going through a list of like 50 people, including myself, to go through this forgiveness exercise. And it was amazing. Then I went for a swim, I went for a jog, did some stretching, and then I went home and I read, and then I played guitar. And it was like this whole day of just playing. And Chelsea was gone at a baby shower, so I got to just kind of like be by myself. And I came in today and was like so powerfully intentional and focused and slept well and everything. Guys, if you're feeling guilty, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the episode yet. This is just our pre-ramble. But if you're feeling guilty, like what Phoebe described, which used to be me, when you take time off, you got to understand that the days that you're taking time off is the day that you're doing the real work, the work that is the, non-physical, unseen, mental, spiritual, emotional stuff. And that is so important. So important. I saw how focused and productive I was today versus going 6 or 7 days straight. By that 7th day, I was just like, I sucked, So do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And it's actually funny. This week, I had a soccer injury, and I was really bummed about it. It happened on Wednesday night. So Thursday morning, I was in the emergency room. It was just like really dramatic. And I was so upset. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just now getting back in shape and all this stuff. And one of my friends called and was like, well, maybe you should take this as a sign that you need to slow down.
Wow.
And I was supposed to go on this weekend trip this past weekend to Sonoma and ended up not going. And I am so happy I didn't, because last night I just had Spotify, like the productive playlist coming out of my speakers. And I sat there and I wrote 14 pages in my journal. I was just like writing at a million miles an hour. And there were moments where I was like crying. There were moments where I'm laughing. I mean, I must have looked like a crazy person, but it was so therapeutic and just so empowering. By the end, same like you, this morning I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I'm on fire. Yeah. I can feel it, and I woke up very intentional about, all right, here's what I got to do. And that's because I want to do it. And that's because I get to choose what I do. And I love when Tony Robbins, I think my favorite line from the whole thing was when he's like, I'm effing unstoppable. Yeah. And that I've like adopted that now as my phrase. Because that's how I feel.
And I felt that on the call. I mean, I feel that now. And I think the thing that I told you before that I'll just bring up again, what I told Phoebe when she first shared this whole story, is that the big lesson here is that her feeling unstoppable and staying in this place of unstoppableness is a choice. It's that life isn't about letting all these things, you can watch a Tony Robbins documentary and it can inspire you or motivate you, but that's fleeting and that goes away. But when you can have the discipline and the practice of turning that on and choosing that way of being or tuning into that vibration for our energetic folks in any moment, that's when it becomes powerful. When Phoebe can stand there and say, I'm unstoppable today, that's not an interpretation of what she has seen. That is a choice that she is creating in the moment. Huge, huge difference. It's a choice that we can choose in every moment, and you're choosing it. It's like, wouldn't you agree that how you are feeling today is something that you knew that even when you were in your funk, you could have tapped into it?
Totally.
It was always there. It's always there. And these things get to remind us of that. And when you throw in that piece about asking for a sign, I mean, you're the one that asked. So careful what you ask for. It sounds like you got a lot of signs.
Yeah. It was one sign after the next. I'm like, all right, stop.
Yeah.
Can't handle it anymore.
Yeah. It's awesome. I love it. So again, thank you for sharing. And also, we just want to we both love the documentary. You've never been, right, to a Tony Robbins?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, definitely recommend going. I've gone to UPW twice, and now we're looking at dates for the next Date with Destiny. Pretty awesome. So go watch the documentary. It's out on Netflix. Go check out one of his events. All right, let's get into today's episode because we had a longer preamble today, but I think some important updates to share. So thanks, Phoebes. Okay, the shortcut to success. We secretly all want it, even though the logical part of our brains has convinced us there are no shortcuts to success. In fact, how many gurus and experts and authorities stand at the top of their mountains with all the results that they have that you desire, and they look back down at you and they say, there are no shortcuts in business. There are no shortcuts to success. And you sit there and you say, okay, I'm going to keep working my tail off. Now, I'm the kind of person that likes to challenge everything anyway. So this is a very fun episode for me to come out and say there is a shortcut to success, and I'm going to prove it to you. But I'm also going to show you that a shortcut isn't what you think a shortcut looks like. Because I'm not necessarily talking about cheating or, you can run a marathon and there's a shortcut, which is like, cheating and taking 2 miles off. That's not what we're talking about here. But we will look at ways that I believe you can get to where you want to go quicker, but it won't look like a shortcut, okay? So when we first played around with this topic, I was talking to a good friend of mine, and we were reflecting on some of the most recent success that he's had, and we've been good friends for many years. And I was like, man, I'm so proud of you. You've come so far. And I was saying this without being condescending. Like, I'm not like patting him on the head, like, you're a good boy, good lad. No, but just like really acknowledge him for what he's done. And he said something that blew me away because I've heard it so many times. And he says, it's funny. It took me 6 years to get here. And I look at what I've learned and what I know and what I've done. And if I did it all over again, I could do it in 6 months. That most of that time was really spent getting in his own way, sabotaging himself, letting fear control his decisions, playing small and talking him out of what he truly needed to do. I went to an event once with Craig Ballantyne, and he started his presentation off with this, and I now share it all the time. He just says 5%. That's like on a slide by itself. 5%. There are 5% of activities that you do or can do that have a direct result on the 95% of results that you will get in your business. So that's what he said. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true, right? And you could see that. It's like the Pareto principle, but instead of 80-20, it's a 5%, 95. But we don't really spend that much time in the 5%. We keep ourselves busy with the 95, don't we? So I look at what my friend said. He could look back to these 6, they could do it all in 6 months again. And I know that even all these experts and gurus who say there is no shortcut to success could all tell you that if they lost, and myself as well, if I lost it all, including my name, like they got, from the movie Face Off with John Travolta, like they got a new face and a new name. So you can't leverage your brand and how you're known because people will say, oh, that's easy. You already have a name and an influence. No. You're like a brand new human being in a new body. That they could get back to where they are way sooner, in months, in the same year. Okay? Now, you could say, well, yeah, because of what they've learned over those years. And I say, yes, true. But if we take a hard look at what we've done in the past, what we're doing right now, what our plans are for the future, we really want to question, are these things that will have a direct impact on the results that we're looking for now? Or are these things that we're putting in our path to keep us busy, what I call the hustle denial mindset, so that as long as we stay busy, we don't have to face the harsh reality that we're not working on the things that truly matter, that will really make the difference in the results that we're after.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that, when you're saying that the gurus are, saying that there are no shortcuts, but even some of the ones that are saying that they're just do this, all these courses that you can buy, do you think it's more that the gurus aren't saying here are the steps, breaking it down in a way that actually feels logical and realistic? Or do you think that everyone else isn't listening?
I think it's actually a combination of both. There's a story about Andre Agassi, I believe, where they asked him to write down his every step to his serve. And the technique, like what does he do first and then second, and then where does he put the weight on his feet and how does he turn his wrist? And they had him write it down or describe it or something. And then they filmed his swing. And interestingly enough, if you guys have ever heard this before, what he said did not line up with his swing. And it's such a great analogy that a lot of times... Now, for me, I've taken a particular interest is a euphemism for obsession as to why is someone really successful? Why are they really getting the results that they're getting? And so I feel like most people, referencing your question, are sitting here saying they got results, and then they're doing what Andre Agassi did, and they're saying, here's what I did to get the results. It's not like they're lying. It's like he wasn't lying to these people. That's what he thought he did that was what really mattered.
Right.
And there might have been something else. And I think a lot of these people that are really successful have something else that they don't really talk about. Like they have a sense of unstoppableness or fearlessness or a drive or a desire or a relentless pursuit of something. A different relationship with money, with customers, with sales, something that they might not be sharing in their 7-step formula, right? And, so that's kind of what I feel there. But, regardless of all of that, What I do want to propose is that there are shortcuts to success. The problem is they just don't look like shortcuts. So I'm not saying do the cheating, cutting corners, half-assing something, looking for some easy, sneaky solution, because that's where people go with that word. That's why we're using it, because it's jarring and different, because no one wants to give you the shortcut anymore, because then they're going to be construed as some, sleazy, get-rich-quick snake oil salesman. And I'm using this word to make a point, but to tell you that the shortcut doesn't mean it's going to be, with one click of a button, you're going to turn your laptop into an ATM machine. So we're going to use an analogy. So I want you to imagine that you are at the top of a waterfall. And Phoebe, you're going to give me some feedback on this analogy, because this is how I see this, right? You're at the top of a waterfall. You look down, it's 60 feet down. That is a pretty darn big waterfall. 60 feet down, and at the bottom is your treasure. That's your treasure chest. That's the result that you're after. And you want what's down there. We have a choice. If we want to get down there, we have two choices. Number one, you go around the waterfall, and there's a little trail, a little windy trail that'll start to take you down. There's like switchbacks. It goes back and forth. There's a rope ladder, and then there's steps and all that stuff, and it'll take you down to the bottom. And you'll get there, no doubt. And then you can jump. Now, if you ask me, jumping is a shortcut because it's going to get you there sooner. And I don't think we can argue that. However, you can see what's coming next. Jumping comes with a little bit of risk. Okay? Obviously, we want to minimize the risk. So there are things that you could do in this analogy, like, maybe you see if there's people that have made this jump before you and they've survived it. Or maybe you could throw a rock in there to see how deep it really is. Maybe you could have someone who's already down there check the depth of the water. You get the idea. But at the end of the day, there is going to become a moment where if you choose that to jump, you're going to be standing with your feet at the edge of this cliff, looking down. Your heart is beating, your pulse is racing, and you're scared out of your mind. And you have to make a decision to either jump or not. And I believe that these are the shortcuts in our business, that there are things, action items, that put us at this ledge, that put us out there, that are never going to feel safe and easy. They're always going to be uncomfortable. They're always going to feel big and scary. They're always going to feel different and outside of our comfort zone and zone of certainty. But by doing them, you do have the chance to get to where you want sooner. Does this make sense?
Absolutely. And I think one more point is when you do jump off, there's no coming back. Which is for me, I'm like, that's the exciting part. That's right. Like if we're actually in the waterfall situation, like that's the adrenaline. That's for me what gets me going. There's no coming back from that because you're such a different person after having jumped.
It's called living.
Yep.
And there's a great quote. It's a Zen saying that I have like in my office. I have it at home, and it says, "Leap, and the net will appear." I like to say, bringing it back to Tony Robbins. At UPW, Unleash the Power Within, he has a thing called a fire walk. And I don't want to rob anybody of this experience, but he literally has you sign a waiver saying that you may receive CBS. What the heck is CBS? Charred, bloody stumps.
Oh, God. Yikes.
That by signing this waiver, you understand that you are taking a big fat risk of losing your feet when you walk across 1,000-degree burning hot coals. And I first did the fire walk back in 2009. I'd started my business, but man, I look back then, such a different kid. Again, shortcut, if I knew now what I knew then, right? And I remember standing up to those coals, and I was so scared out of my friggin' mind. I thought I was going to trip. That was my biggest fear. I was going to trip and fall on my hands on the coals and burn my hands and my feet off. Oh, no. So I'm like, well, I didn't sign charred bloody wrists, So a true story. It's called CBS. It's hilarious. So I was scared out of my mind. And there was a moment where you feel the fear, and the fear is friggin' real, because this is not a fear of public speaking. This isn't a fear of doing a webinar. This isn't a fear of getting on a sales call, because you don't die in those. You don't even feel physical pain at all if those go awfully wrong. But if you screw up on a firewalk, there is consequences that can affect you for the rest of your life physically. You could die, right? There actually was something in the paper about this. I don't know how accurate it was, but like 60 people got injured and had to get rushed to the hospital from one of his firewalks. This is a real thing. And you feel this fear, and then you take that first step. And I believe that if you want what you want, like really want it, like you're really hungry for it, you got to start to develop that muscle. You got to strengthen that muscle of feeling the fear and doing it anyways. We did a whole episode on this called Do Scary Shite. And it's really about that moment where you flip the switch, turn it on, press send, dial that number, or step off of that ledge, where it's every moment leading up to that is what's scary. But once you do it, the fear goes away. And the fear is just there to hold you back from doing it. It's not there to tell you don't do it. It's not there to do anything else. It won't even screw up the results. It's just there to say, don't jump, don't jump, don't jump, don't. Oh, he jumped. Okay, I'll get out of his way then. And that's what it was. I was standing on right before those coals, and it's like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're an idiot. You're an idiot. Oh, okay, he did it. And
also you're looking ahead of you, and you're like, well, those people did it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like, well, someone else did it, and and they're okay.
Like a little kid,
and they survived.
A little kid did it, and I was like, "Wow, if this 13-year-old girl did it, I should do it too." Oh my gosh! But I was really, and to know that feeling, to feel a fear and do it anyways, is a powerful feeling.
Yep.
So, where do we want to go with this? Well, I believe there are number one, there's things that you want in your life always result in your business, money, finances, relationship, health goals, whatever. There are things that you want. And there are actions that you can take that are going to get you there and could get you there sooner. And we're not doing them. All of us. Phoebe and I are not excluded from this, okay? We did an episode talking about language leaving clues, and I talked about my fear of asking for help from affiliates. It's the same freaking thing here. But the problem is if you're really smart, like I'm one of those guys that thinks he's really smart. So smart people have got it the worst because what do? We use logic to convince ourselves why we shouldn't do this or why it's not ready yet or blah, blah, blah. We literally outsmart ourselves. I hire a coach and always have a coach for this reason, and I let them know. I said, do not let me outsmart myself, let alone you, because I'm really good at doing it. Mm-hmm. I can outsmart myself and my coach, and I've done it. I can give reasons that sound so logical and make so much sense, but it's all based on being reasonable and playing small and wiggling my way out of doing that thing that's uncomfortable. It's always going to be uncomfortable. We delayed the launch of the podcast for the longest time. I wanted to do a mastermind 3 years ago. First time I said I wanted to do a mastermind was in 2012. I was living in New York, and I didn't do it until the last month of 2015. Okay, so there's always things that we're always not doing, that uncomfortable thing. Stop waiting for it to actually become comfortable, because it never will.
I loved it in my personality assessment. He was like, you are a master justifier. You can justify anything, and you're a snake charmer. He's like, you can get people to do things for you. I'm like, yeah, but the worst is when I do them to myself. I can justify anything. I can justify pizza if the food list is way longer than anything else, but I can get other people to hear me out and be like, oh yeah, of course. Well, I see why you didn't do that. Oh, that makes perfect sense. And then in my head, I'm like, well, yeah, obviously. Yeah. Of course I did. Of course I didn't do that because it makes sense to me. It's a terrible, terrible habit.
We have so many examples of these, but what I want to do right now is ask you guys, our listeners, to come up with a list of things that are already popping in your head. Now, your logical brain, Tony Robbins likes to say in the documentary, if you're in your head, you're dead. This is exactly what we're talking about here. But what is the thing that's starting to nag at you right now? What is the thing that you kind of know in the back of your head, all right, I know I did this, but then you've already talked yourself out of doing it? Just write that thing down. I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying write it down. You don't have to do it today. If you were to come with me to an event, I'd make you do it, and we'd do it together, and it would be uncomfortable, but you would do it, and you'd thank me after. But right now on this podcast, you just want to start to write down those things. What are the things that you're procrastinating? What are the things that you're putting off? What are the things that you know you need to do, but you're not doing? What are you telling yourself is the reason why you're not ready yet? Here's a powerful way to start doing this. Identify the results that you want, right? We always ask this in almost every podcast. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And then what you can do is you can role play this, and you could actually say, how would a successful business do this? You could take one of your mentors or authorities or gurus or someone that you look up to. Like, if you really like Gary Vaynerchuk, you say, okay, well, how would Gary Vaynerchuk do this? How would Oprah Winfrey do this? And you see what they would come up with. And you do that yourself.
That was my morning. I'm like, how would Tony Robbins handle this?
Yep.
He's unstoppable. What would he do?
Yes.
Well, he certainly wouldn't sleep in. He would get up and go for a run.
Yes. And then what'd you do? You got up and went for a run. Like, it's that simple. It's that simple, but we limit ourselves every day. That's okay. We're human. We're human. Okay. So what's that thing that you're procrastinating? Phoebe, share with me something right now. Maybe nothing at the moment because you're unstoppable, but what is something that you feel like you had or maybe still are procrastinating or putting off a little bit?
A live event. That's something I really want to do. I've said it since the beginning of the year. I really want a live event. So my own live event with women. Okay, great. So let me ask this. This is a powerful piece. Yeah. What is the action item that puts you into feeling uncomfortable? What's specific? Like, because when you talk about a live event, there is 78 action items. There is creating the agenda, asking speakers to come speak at it. There's creating a sales page for it. There's picking a venue. All these steps. Where is the first item on that list where you go, oh gosh, I don't want to do that right there? It's the personal invitation. Like inviting the guests? Or yes. Okay. So I want it to be really small, but I have a list of people that I have in mind. It's just actually reaching out to them and asking them to come. So you jumping off the ledge, the cliff, the waterfall, is asking those VIPs to attend your event. Yep. Got it. You know that will never become comfortable. Right. Like that's nothing that you can wait until it's like, I mean, you can, but by the time then it's just taking too long. Like this little bit of uncomfortableness, because it's just you having a worry that someone's going to say no or reject you or, and then you start getting in your head about, oh my gosh, is this not going to work and blah, blah, blah. If you're waiting for it to get fun and easy and perfect timing and stuff, it's just not going to do that. Otherwise, it would have already happened. What you'll notice is that when you do that scary thing, it usually it was a lot easier than we thought it was going to be, a little bit more fun than we thought it was going to be. And then you're doing it by the 10th or 12th one. You're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why did I wait so long? This is stupid. And I look back, and the problem is that, not that this is a problem, but the challenge I have is that doing what I've been doing for so long in business, I really take for granted some of the things that I don't remember anymore were big challenges for me. And as I coach newer students, I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Just do it. And then you're like, oh yeah, this was something that was a huge roadblock. Like this is something that was like one of those big hurdles to climb. And so the moral of that is that once you overcome that, like there's no going back. Like Phoebe said, you've conquered that fear. I went back to UPW and I did the firewalk again. There was no fear because I did it. I knew exactly what to expect. But life is lived right outside that zone of uncertainty. And that's what's fun. Doing that thing that kind of scares you a little bit. I love cliff jumping, by the way. We do it everywhere we go. We've done it in Italy. We did it in Hawaii. We do it in Laguna because it's kind of scary. It's kind of, a little bit of a thrill there. And I think that's fun when we do it in our lives, taking that risk. There's something for everybody. For Phoebe, it's you want to get specific. It's not putting on a live event, because I've seen people lie to themselves that they are putting on an event or doing something, and they're doing all the other stuff. Oh, I've got my agenda. I've got my logo. I talked to the venue. Oh, look, I made notebooks. Yeah, but who's coming? Who knows about this thing? So for Phoebe, the moment she's walking towards the ledge, but she's not up until her toes aren't hanging off the edge until she has to make that first phone call or send out that first email or write that first letter that says, I'm hosting this event. Will you attend? Yes or no? And this is what I like to call an at-bat moment. You're up to the plate, right? We've talked about this before, where you are standing up to the plate. You're either going to hit the ball or you're going to strike out. And the secret isn't about how do we, hit the ball more frequently. It's just knowing that you increase your odds of hitting home runs if you increase your frequency of getting up to the plate. It's all a numbers game. Don't forget that. So what's something I'm procrastinating? 2 things right now. I have to write the sales script for Business by Design.
I so keep putting that off, but I will have it done by the end of tomorrow. That I promise. But I've seen myself for 2.5 weeks delay even wanting to look at it because it's a big task, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is the video that's supposed to summarize this big signature program that we've been working on for 7 months straight, practically 8 years in the making. And I got to put everything about what I stand for in this program and what it's about and how it's going to help you in one video. We build it up. It's all the meaning we put on stuff, right? So what's going to help me powerfully get into action around that is a lot of things. There's accountability, like saying I'm going to do it and letting my team know, or letting people on my podcast know I'm going to do it, but also softening it. How can I just say, listen, this video isn't the only thing that's going to sell this program. We've got a ton of other videos, tons of emails, tons of webinars, and tons of testimonials. It's ridiculous to say that I'm putting all of the entire weight of whether this thing is going to succeed or not into this one video. That's silly. That's not true. We both know that. We both, as in me and the voice in my head. So that softens it a bit, and it allows for you to do it. Another thing I'm procrastinating is, ironically, what I brought up is reaching out to affiliates. That's still something that I still have resistance around. I'm more aware of it now, and I can shift it quicker. I can sit there and say, listen, you're not taking advantage of an affiliate. The right promotional partners would more than love to support me. So what are you procrastinating? What is that thing that in the 5% of activities, okay, the 5% of activities, that's the zone we're talking about, that place. Now, a lot of people do things that really delay their success as well. They want to take the longer route because they want to prove to the world that they have sacrificed so much to get to where they are. Look at all my scars and bruises and notches and all that silly stuff. And so people will then go out and say that and say, if you're in business, you shouldn't sell something for at least a year.
Do people say that?
Yes. There are strategies that say blog every week for 6 months before you even consider selling something. That is, I'm not saying it doesn't work. It does, but just understand you are delaying what you want by a minimum of 6 months, period. I don't think you have a business until you are making money anyway, so you're just playing in, the sidelines for 6 months, in my opinion. We're going to get a little flack for that, but bring it, okay? Now, here's why. One of my students, she's one of my VIP students, comes to one of my events, 0 fans, 0 list, 0 product. And I taught her how to create and sell a product with 0 fans, 0 list. And she created her first product and sold it within 2 months, maybe less. I think it was like 6 weeks, and did $16,000. No list, no fans, and nada. No product, right? Then did it again, did $101,000. Then did it again, did $300,000. Folks, she generated over $400,000 in her first 9 months of business. Can you imagine if I would have told her, wait 6 months? I think she would have fired me. I'm going to be honest. Everyone's got their own journey and their own path, but we use a lot of these excuses and we turn them into logic. Well, I don't have the experience yet. I don't have enough of that expertise. I don't have a big enough following. I don't have blah, 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 blah. These are all just BS excuses we tell ourselves. I'm sorry, but it is. And I got to get a little passionate here, but it is. You're not an expert? Find an expert. Hire an expert. Partner with an expert. Interview with an expert. Become one by jumping in and getting your first world hard knock life expert degree. I can't tell you how many times, by the way, this is all said with frustrating love of wanting the most for you. So I hope you get that. I can't tell you how many times I've had people say things like, well, how can I talk about testimonials and case studies when I don't have any? Friggin' get some. Get some. What is stopping you? I'll tell you, it's just fear. It's just that. It's just that. And that's okay. But how long are you going to let that control you? No, James, you don't understand. I just started and I got this job and these are just the reasons. But when you know what you want, you're telling me what you want, okay? You're the one putting the walls up, the junk, the hurdles, all that stuff. The shortest distance between 2 points is what? A straight line. That's the shortcut. That's the whole irony. That's the big cosmic joke of this, is that the shortcut is to go from where you are to where you want to be, straight beeline there. But that's not how we do things, is it? We're all guilty of this, but We turn left here for a little bit, and then we take some time off, and then we take 3 steps backwards, and then we go really far forwards, and then we give up, and then we go to the right a little bit, and then we do a little curly Q and a figure 8, and then boom, we did it, right? And by then, the point B has already been pushed further because our goals get bigger and bigger even before we hit them. That's life, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to encourage you, to invite you to find more of that direct route, that straight line, because that is our shortcut. That's the shortcut that we don't always choose because it feels uncomfortable. It's scary. But I will have a reason for every excuse that you give me. And I will have an example for every answer as to why it doesn't work. There is an exception. But at the end of the day, it comes down to this. If I ask you the question, what do you want? And you have an answer, that's your choice. That's what you want. That's what you want. Own it. And find the most direct path to getting there. Don't say you want something and then tell me all the reasons why you can't have it. Because you know this from listening to the podcast that I believe with every cell in my body, every bit of who I am, that if you have created a desire in your life, whatever it is, what do you want? Whatever that answer is, if it's your answer, then it is an inevitability, then it is a true possibility. People say like, oh yeah, I want to be a basketball player, but I'm 5'5". Do you really want to be a professional basketball player? Really? Really? I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but you got to really ask, is that really what you want? Maybe you just love basketball and you want to play in a intramural league or something, but do you really want to play professional basketball player with people 3 feet taller than you? If you do, that's fantastic. I'm sure it is a possibility. But if it's something you truly want, I do believe that it is something that is a true possibility for you. We just get in our own way with all of our reasons and excuses. We all do it. I do it. So the shortcut's the straight line. The straight line comes with some risks, some scary things, some cliffs, some things that you're going to have to do that you've never done before. Because as I also like to say, what got you here won't get you there. So whether it's hosting that webinar, that first webinar, going live, doing a launch, sending out that email, inviting people to your event, calling that person on the phone. We all have a phone call we could make that could have a huge impact on our lives that we're not making. Whether it's asking for somebody for something. How many times do we resist that? Asking for help. Mm-hmm. Might as well just ask, you know? Don't be afraid to ask. We all have those things. I invite you to identify those things and realize that just as Phoebe discovered that she had the courage and the unstoppableness already within her, that you don't need to find it, you don't need to go out and get the courage, that it's there. Maybe you just haven't used it in a while, but it's there.
I loved in the Tony Robbins documentary when he was talking about the lions, and then he had that guy roar. Do you remember that part? And the guy just like let out this roar. It was, if you haven't seen it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you watched it, good, that moment, I was like, oh, I got chills. That was amazing. And I think another part of, you know, when we're talking about what got you here won't get you there and all of this is calling yourself out and knowing what you do best. If you're someone like myself who can talk, you know, I can talk my way out of anything. I need to let, you know, my coach know, my friends know, whoever it is that I confide in. I'm like, if you hear me say this, or I try to get myself out of it, because this is ultimately what I want, and sharing that very openly is a really important piece of that, especially for me when now, obviously on the podcast, now if I don't make those phone calls, I have a lot of people to answer to, but I think sharing that with people that know you and know what you're up to is a really important piece, because then they're not going to take it easy on you. And I think, especially James, in your example with your client, you know, if she had come to you and said, oh, I don't know, I'm not an expert, I could never do it. And you'd be like, yeah, you're probably right. You know, she would never have hit those milestones, gotten all that momentum. And then now to look at her business is just incredible where she's come. So being able to identify that in yourself and share that with other people and let people hold you accountable is a really important piece.
I love that. So to wrap this up, listeners, hopefully you've written down at least one thing, and it's the thing that you don't want to write down that you really need to write down. And if you choose to do it, awesome. But here's the question I want you to ask and stay in the question, right? The quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask. We did a whole episode on this, so here's some more great questions for you. What does it look like to be fearless? What does it look like to be unstoppable? You see, this quote, what got you here won't get you there, is, to me, it's the secret of all of it. You need to be able to identify what you want and who you need to be and what your business needs to be in order to get that, in order to have those results. And you need to act from that place now. So there's a great example from this. I'm actually rereading Michael Gerber's classic book, The E-Myth Revisited. Fantastic book. It's an essential read for every entrepreneur, in my opinion. In the book, Gerber references Tom Watson. Now, Tom Watson was the founder of IBM. And at the end of his legacy, he reflected on the 3 specific reasons why IBM was a massive success from startup to, while he was running the company. The first reason is that at the very beginning, I had a very clear picture of what the company would look like when it was finally done. The second reason was that once I had that picture, I then asked myself how a company which looked like that would have to act. And the third reason was that once I had a picture of how IBM would look like and how such a company would have to act, I then realized that unless we began to act that way now, from the very beginning, we would never get there. What got you here won't get you there. If you want to take a shortcut in your life or business, it means being willing to do the scary, uncertain things that are just outside your comfort zone. But remember, that's where life begins. What does it look like to be fearless? What does it look like to be unstoppable? Try it on. You just might like how it feels.
Last night on one of my big poster boards, I wrote "The Real Unstoppable Phoebe Mroczek," and then I underlined it, and then I just started writing. And so now it's on my bedroom wall, and it has all of these things that being the unstoppable Phoebe Mroczek, what would that actually look like? And I was taking notes through the Tony Robbins the second time I watched it, and it's amazing the list that came out. So it's my goal now to read that every morning and be like, I'm going to act today from that place because I am unstoppable. That's the way I feel.
Yes. Good. This is a great place to end. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We truly appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to the Mind Your Business podcast, you might as well do that now. You can find us over on iTunes. Do a little search in the iTunes store. Or you can head over to jameswedmore.com/iTunes. You can also leave a review for us there. If you haven't already, we truly appreciate all the positive feedback and reviews that have come in. So thank you. It's been extraordinary. It's truly motivated us. That's why we're going to 2 episodes a week. So make sure to catch us every Monday for a brand new episode like this, and every Thursday for one of our listener questions of the week. So until next time, here's to being unstoppable. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.